Hello everybody and welcome today to our lunchtime listen and live. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kate Legg and I'm one of the practitioners that works at Dementia Carers Count. I'm an occupational therapist by background, and I'm joined today by Dr. Jemima Fitzgerald, who is a clinical psychologist with a strong interest in building resilience and well-being. So welcome, Jemima. Are you able to say a bit more about who you are and why you've joined us today?
Thanks, Kate. Yes, so my name is Jemima. I'm a clinical psychologist, as she said. I've been involved with Dementia Carers Count since 2017 now, so quite a long time. My doctoral research was around resilience, which is basically, how do we cope with really difficult times in life? How can we adapt? I don't think people can bounce back after really hard times, but how can we learn? How can we grow? How can we adapt and cope? And survive and even thrive after these things. So yeah, that's me, and it's lovely to be here.
Oh, thank you, Jemima. So today we're thinking about, I don't know if people have heard on the news that today is called Blue Monday, as it's meant to be one of the most depressing days of the year. So we're thinking a little bit about this time of year and how people manage. If you've got any questions about that or any comments, then please do pop them in the chat box. That would be lovely. But so yeah, like I said, the media called today Blue Monday, and mostly linked to the fact that it's January, that it's post-Christmas, it's still quite dark, dark skies, credit card bills start coming in, and it's generally a difficult time of year. And even though we try not to get caught up in the kind of media thing about that today is the most difficult time of the year, generally this is quite a difficult time of year for people, isn't it, Jemima?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the start of a new year, sometimes we're all different, but sometimes we can start a new year feeling hopeful, optimistic, maybe set some goals, New Year's resolutions, all of that stuff. And, maybe by this point of the year, we've all that's gone to pot, broken all your New Year's resolutions, and it can feel quite overwhelming, I think. And social media can be great. We're on it now. It's a wonderful thing, but also can be really toxic, if I'm honest. This is the good part of it. But that comparison with other people seeming to have been setting all these goals and reviewing their last year, and it all looks so rosy and wonderful. And I think it can be quite overwhelming. Also the weather. There's a lot, and I think this term Blue Monday was coined by actually by a psychologist a few years ago, and it was around sort of statistically speaking, the third Monday of the new year is when I think sometimes we haven't been paid yet. Still feels quite a long way to payday. Credit card bills have maybe hit. Everyone's thinking I've spent too much at Christmas. There's just a lot going on, and obviously for family carers of people with dementia, there's a whole other layer to that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if it's particularly difficult for carers at this time.
Yeah, I mean, we know that, and I'm sure as everyone here is listening, it's really tough anyway. So as you said, it's not really about today being tough, but in general, it's tough. But we know from research that family carers tell us they're worried about money. That's a big thing.
Yes.
And, we've got the cost of living crisis, lots of talk about that in the media. So there's a lot of doom and gloom, a lot of worry and a lot of anxiety. So that's something. We know that carers tend to often have a sense of grief, stress, worry, fear. They might be feeling a bit hopeless. Often family carers tell us that they struggle with low self-esteem. They can get frustrated and angry. So all of that on top of the fact that this is January and a tough time.
Yeah, thank you, Jemima. We've had a comment saying that the Christmas period is such a relief for me. My son is around more and helps as much as he can. He has his own family with young children, so I don't like to ask too much of him. This time of year is particularly hard. And I think sometimes that's, again, isn't it, where people maybe have had more contact over Christmas and then that contact has kind of dropped back again as people have gone back to work and things.
Yeah, definitely.
So it can feel a bit more difficult. So anyway, so today we're going to try and focus on some of the positive things and look at, are there ways, techniques we can use or things we can do to kind of lift our well-being. And so see, I'm an occupational, I think a lot about activities and generally what people are doing with their time. And so for this time of year, I think one of the hints we might have is about trying to get out and get as much daylight as you can, because obviously daylight is limited because it gets dark so early, but trying to get out and get as much sunshine as you can. And certainly, I mean, like if we have days like yesterday, we had a day when it was actually sunny, wasn't it?
Yeah.
About the only one in the last week, I think. So I was just like, oh, get out. You need to just try and be out there. And so also trying to connect with nature and getting out into going for walks and things like that. Is that things that you've experienced, Jemima? Or
yeah, I'm all for going for walks. I've got a dog, and my dog, I'll tell you, she's a lifesaver. We know that, you know, just being outside around the colour green, which is, you know, nature's colour, is really good for our mental health. You know, 20 minutes around the colour green in nature can really boost our serotonin levels, which is good for our mood. So being outside, getting fresh air, but also, you know, in the darker months when we're not getting as much daylight, we tend to stay indoors because the weather's rubbish and the days are shorter in terms of daylight. That can affect our melatonin levels, and the melatonin is a hormone in our body that we produce when we're in daylight, and it helps us to regulate our sleep. So often our sleep can be a bit disturbed at this time of year because we're not getting enough daylight. So if we can, getting outside, even if it's not sunny, even if it's a bit of a gloomy day, getting outside, even for half an hour for a walk, is so good for us. So little things like that actually can make a difference. I know it sounds a bit glib, and sometimes it's the last thing you feel like doing when you're low. It'd be really good for us.
I was thinking that because I'm a dog walker as well, I've got a dog as well, but I can't remember the expression now, but something about it's about making sure you're wearing the right clothes, basically. So the weather doesn't really matter provided you've got the right clothes on. So so making sure, so even though you might not want to go out, actually if you get your wellies on and get your nice warm coat, then getting out makes it much easier. So I've just brought a slightly longer coat so that because I realized that in the summer when I take the dog out, I will take the dog out and then find like a park bench or something and sit and be out with the dog. But in the winter when it's wet and cold, I tend to just whiz around with the dog and come back in. So I've brought a longer coat so that I can sit on a bench and have a damp bottom but still be out. So it's kind of little practical tips like that, isn't it? Just to try and get out if you can. So the other thing around activities, I was thinking if you can't get out, so if the weather is atrocious, which it can be, can't it?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about trying to do things at home instead, because sometimes I find that if I'm at home and not doing anything, I tend to then sort of doze or just feel quite lethargic, and then that's quite difficult. So trying to find some activities at home maybe, or creative things that you could do, similar to kind of what people were doing, I think, during COVID lockdown when they were stuck indoors. What creative things can people do? So craft things or baking. Baking's always a good one, isn't it? If you can get something nice to share. So I'm just trying to look at what some comments we've had. So David says he's out walking now whilst listening to this session. 20 minutes of walking a day does me the world of good. Brilliant. And then Gerald said, I struggle to get out and about because of my knees, but Andrew's virtual nature walks on your YouTube channel are fantastic. Oh, thank you, Gerald. So that's Andrew Embling, one of our wellbeing practitioners. He has put some, I think he's actually done videos where he's done a walk and they're on our YouTube channel. So thank you, that's great. Any other suggestions of activities, Jemima, anything you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's so many things, you know, and again, when we're feeling a bit low and motivation can sort of slump, I think it can be a bit tricky to feel creative, but anything that it's about knowing yourself, I guess, like what helps you. Like, so for me, I've got a dog, so just, you know, there's loads of research about just spending time actually stroking a pet can really lift our mood. It can just produce that feel-good hormone, oxytocin, in our body it gives a sense of connection and feeling connected to people, animals, humanity in general is really important for our mood. Also, you know, you can still exercise at home. You know, there's some great videos on YouTube. You've got, you know, you could stick on a stretching. There's some videos around stretching exercises, like just low impact, just to get the endorphins going in your brain, get some more oxygen getting to your blood supply. It's really good for us. Some nice, slow, deep breathing is so good. You know, like breathing, I tend to like breathe in for 4, breathe out for 5, nice slow counts, but you know, whatever works for you. Breathing in through your nose, breathing out through your mouth. That can really reduce blood pressure. It can just slow you down, help you to think more clearly, and it activates your, what we call the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the nervous system that helps us to feel grounded, calm and safe. So yes, there's activities we can do at home, but there's also some exercises, that whether they're physical exercises, breathing exercises, gratitude exercises, you know, and that can be hard when you're feeling up against it and sometimes resentful, angry, whatever. But if you can, I know it takes a lot of strength, looking at, well, what have I got to still be grateful for? I've got a roof over my head, thank you. You know, just having that, sometimes writing down 3 things every day that I'm grateful for. They can be the simplest things, you know, as I saw a lovely flowers in the garden today, or, you know, whatever it is, or they can be bigger things. But just focusing our mind on things that are, you know, are more positive in our life. You know, it's a balance, isn't it? You know, we can't pretend that hard stuff isn't happening, but actually being able to focus on also what there is to be grateful for is hard, but really, really important.
Yeah, I think noticing the little things actually, because as I walked into my house today, I looked at my pots that were out the front, and my first thought was, oh dear, a lot of the plants are dead because of the frost. But then I thought, oh no, look, there's some little buds. I can see some little buds coming through from some of the bulbs. So it's kind of seeing those little glimmers in amongst the what looks gloomy at the moment, but seeing the little glimmers.
So important, Kate, because it's almost, I like to think of it as a mental palate cleanser. You know, have you ever been to a really fancy restaurant where they give you like a little palate cleanser?
Oh yes,
yeah. I think I've done it a couple of times in my life. But it's a bit like that. Sometimes we can just feel like, oh gosh, this day is hard. It feels tough, but we can have a mental palate cleanse, and it's things like that, you know, noticing there is beauty in every day. There really is. And sometimes it's hard to find it, but it's there. And the smallest things, if we can focus our attention on it just for a few moments and notice it and soak it in and be grateful, that can actually cleanse our palate and help us to start again.
Yeah, brilliant. We've got a couple more comments. So Pauline said, writing is such a powerful tool. It also helps me remember my dad in the way that I want to think of him. So that's one.
Beautiful.
Sorry, I'm just having problems moving the thing down.
I can see one about a piano as well.
Oh, can you read that one? Yeah, because I can see it, but it's disappeared.
Someone's commented, I've started to relearn playing the piano. I haven't played for 30 years, but we've always had a small upright piano in the house, and I decided to take it up again after just brief sittings, 15 to 20 minutes at a time. Brings me joy and demands enough of my concentration to allow me to detach from my role as a carer. Fortunately, I have some support that enables me to do this. I think it's absolutely lovely. I've got a piano, I can sit at the back, and I'm the same. 15 or 20 minutes I mean, I'm not that good at doing it every day, but when I do, exactly as this person just said, just gives me enough attention to focus on something lovely. And
oh, that's brilliant. I think the other thing is about one of the other pieces of advice is about trying to stay connected with people. So, you know, if you're not able to get out, or you're not doing the things that you might have done, or you might do later in the year when it's easier to, you know, go and sit in the garden with somebody or something. So any thoughts about staying connected?
Well, we know in terms of resilience and in how we cope with tough times in life, a sense of connection to others is so valuable. And sometimes that's hard, as you said, you know, January, we might not feel like going out, we're not having the money to go out, you know, to see friends in the normal way or whatever, but actually feeling connected, you know, even this is a sense, hopefully this is bringing a sense of connection as we're talking. If you can pick up the phone, talk to a friend, it's so important, or a family member, someone who listens. Actually, we also have a support line. I don't know if you're going to mention that at some point, Kate. You know, text service, anything that you can do to reach out. And sometimes when you're feeling low, it's hard, as I said before, it's hard to motivate yourself to do it, but it's a bit like taking a medicine. If it's worth it, it's worth doing it, you know, just to reach out to others. So if you can go and meet a friend, join a group, a social group, if there's anything that you physically can do, I would highly recommend it. And probably when you feel like doing it the least is probably when you need to do it the most. And if you can't, if you can pick up the phone, that's really important, or do a Zoom call. You know, we're so much better at all of that now.
I'm just thinking sometimes at this time of year it's the thought of going out in the dark, isn't it, and the rain, and quite often you think, oh, I really don't want to do that, but then when you do it, you think, oh gosh, it was worth it. And actually we have got a comment here from somebody that says, my friends go for a weekly Friday morning walk and are constantly encouraging me to join them. I just feel too tired. I hear all the time that you shouldn't ignore your own social life, but it's hard. So it's getting past that bit, isn't it, where quite often initially you do feel tired and unmotivated and not wanting to do it. You almost have to push yourself a little bit, don't you, to then kind of get the benefits of it. I think sometimes we wait until we're motivated, but it doesn't work like that, does it?
No, and also be kind to yourself. If you thought you were going to go out tomorrow and then you don't go, you know, don't beat yourself up. Don't you know, we could start again. It's understandable that you're finding it tricky, but actually, if you can make that effort, maybe give yourself a reward at the end of it. Plan a reward, something nice. You know, if you really don't feel like it, celebrate the small wins. They're really important. So, you know, when I get back, I'm going to treat myself to whatever. You know, watching something on TV that's nice, or you know, whatever it is. But I'm going to cook a nice meal tonight. But really, if you can, it's worth it. It's worth it for your mental health. And we know that, you know, if you get depressed, if you go under, if you like, you're not going to be able to cope, and you're not going to be as able to care for your person with dementia as well. So it's really important that you don't see this as selfishness, but you see this is actually crucial for you to keep you going.
Thanks, Jamal. That kind of brings me on to my next question about how do you know when something is so you're just feeling a bit down and unmotivated because of the time of year, and how do you know when there's something more serious going on, like maybe depression, or even something like seasonal affective disorder? What's the difference between just feeling low and that sort of situation?
Well, as we started off this whole talk, we know that this is a time of year when lots of people feel low. Okay, especially today, but actually, you know, January in general. So feeling sad is really normal. It's part of being a human being. And I think especially feeling sad when you're a family carer of somebody with dementia, of course it's normal, it's justified. You know, you've got a lot going on, and sometimes there's grief associated with it. So that's sad. But usually sadness is an emotion that comes upon us a bit like a wave. But usually when we're feeling sad, we might feel sad all day, we might feel sad most of the day, but the sort of key characteristic of sad is that something can pull you out of it, even if it's just for a brief period of time. So you might be feeling really rubbish all day, really low, really flat, but then you have a phone call with a friend and actually it perks you up, even if it just perks you up for an hour. But it makes you feel better. You might even have a laugh on the phone. Something might make you giggle, something. That is probably not depression, because something can pull you out of it, even if it's just temporarily. With depression, on the whole, it's really consistent. So we tend to stay in it. It's like we get into a slump, and things that we would have found funny before, we would have enjoyed before, it would have sparked something in us before, it just can't, and nothing seems to pull us out. And you know, the diagnostic criteria for depression is that you're like that, really low, maybe tearful, maybe very low energy, maybe your appetite is affected, either you're eating loads or you're eating not at all, or all over the place, your sleep's affected, your motivation is really low consistently for over 2 weeks. So nothing has been able to pull you out of it. And if that's the case, then I would say probably it's a good idea to go to your GP and have a chat and see what they think and go from there. And there's lots of things that could be offered for you if that's the case. And also, as you just mentioned, there's this also there's this thing called seasonal affective disorder. And lots of people actually I can't remember what the actual statistic is. It might be like 1 in 14 people struggle with this. It's quite a lot, where in the winter months particularly, people feel much lower in mood. And but occasionally it's the summer months that people feel a lot lower in mood, and they feel better in the winter. But for most people with it, they feel much lower and you would probably notice it as a cycle in your life, that every winter I feel really low. And then by the spring, I feel much better. So it could be that. And the symptoms are really similar to depression, but it's exactly like it says on the tin, it's more seasonal. And we don't really know why that's the case, but probably it's to do with daylight. But yeah, there's lots of different theories, things that might be going on. But yeah, again, if that's the case, I would suggest you go to your GP, and also know that if it is seasonal, that hold on to that hope that it will pass.
Thank you, Jemima. That's brilliant advice. A couple of comments. So Sheila has put, this is really good advice. I wish I would have had this advice years ago. And then Lorraine shares with us about how her husband Eric passed away just over 3 years ago, and she'd been caring for him for nearly 10 years. She has 2 daughters who both live away, but both invite me to go and stay with them each Christmas and New Year. And I did do for the first year after Eric passed away, but I only felt more depressed because he wasn't there too. I've stayed at home for the past 2 Christmases. I feel like I'm putting on a mask when I talk to people, but it feels easier this way. Any thoughts about that, Jemima?
Yeah, I mean, you know, losing your husband, it's really hard. And Christmas is such an emotional time. I think it's a time of real nostalgia. Kind of have this feeling of perfection and Christmases that are going on elsewhere, and obviously you think about Christmases past, so it's really tough. And I can completely understand why going away at Christmas was really tough. It might have been equally as tough at home on your own. I don't know, but yeah, my heart goes out to you, because it is really hard. And I think, you know, you talk about wearing a mask, and so common, so many people do that. And I would say, I think that's it's a survival mechanism. It's how you've got through, because, you know, the alternative is that you don't wear a mask and you just feel really low and you cry all the time in front of everyone, and that doesn't feel right either for you, maybe. But I would really hope and encourage you to have a think about, is there anyone that you can be vulnerable with? Is there anyone that you can just take that mask off, even if you don't have to take it off all day, but just take it off for a bit, and, you know, just have an outlet to some of that emotion, because bottling stuff up isn't good for us. It really isn't. And, you know, it sounds like you're incredibly strong and you're doing so well, but also you're not a robot, you are human. And actually, lots of people have felt like this too. You're not, you know, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just really hard. So please try and open up. And again, you know, if you're struggling and thinking, well, there's no one I trust, then perhaps phone our support line.
Yeah, thank you. I think our colleague will put the support line number in the chat, but it's on the website as well. So just thinking a little bit more just for the last few minutes, because we're running out of time, about some self-care activities, because you were saying about being kind to yourself and you know, things that might kind of help get through the difficult times. So sometimes carers feel guilty if they're spending time doing things for themselves. So it's kind of like encouraging people to feel that it's okay to do self-care activities. Any thoughts on that, Jemima?
Yeah, I mean, we've said it before on other calls or other Facebook Lives, but that whole oxygen mask analogy, I can't emphasize it enough. You know, if you've ever been on a flight, the flight attendants say to you, you know, if the oxygen mask falls down, you must put it on your own face. You must get your own oxygen before you can care for somebody next to you, even if that person is vulnerable and a child, because if you pass out, you're no good to anyone. So, and it's the same for this. It's not about being selfish. It's not about being, you know, self-absorbed or anything like that. But if you don't look after you, you're not going to be good to anyone. So please see it as a vital importance that you do look after yourself. And looking after yourself, self-care activities, it really can make a difference. It's small periods of time. It could be 15 minutes here and 15 minutes there, but just reminding yourself that you're still you. Sometimes carers say, I don't feel like me anymore. I've forgotten what I enjoy. I've forgotten what it feels like to be engaged in something and actually look forward to something. But if you can, it will help you. It will help you to be a carer.
Yeah, brilliant. And one of the other things we say when we do a session about carers' well-being is about this thing about recharging, and that imagine like when you've got your mobile phone, that it's lovely if you can take like 3 or 4 hours to completely charge it, but the reality is often you only get a few percent. Because actually it's like when my teenage godchildren turn up, the first thing they do is run into the house and try and plug their phone in, because then they can get from 75% to 80%. But those few minutes of recharging, so it may be that there's some self-care activities that are short but give you a little burst. So they're really, really important. I'm just thinking about the pets thing. I'm slightly distracted because I have 2 kittens who were shut out of the room until whilst I was doing this Facebook Live, but managed to bash their way through just as we went live.
To be involved.
But actually just even having a couple of minutes of stroking them or laughing at their entertaining ways is a real boost. We've got another comment here saying, I found it hard to get out and about again after COVID, but I'm getting there. I definitely feel much better in myself now that I'm around friends again. I began feeling guilty about forgetting my worries, but I worked through that by talking to people about it. So that's good. It's quite a big change, isn't it? So it's difficult enough to get out and about anyway, but having had that period of time where we were in lockdown, for quite a while of it, people were desperate to get out. But then actually, when the reality of actually getting back out again came back, it was harder than we realised, I think, wasn't it? Have you found that?
Yeah, definitely. We went through such a massive thing, that pandemic, and it was a huge adjustment, and then another huge adjustment coming out of it. So of course, again, be kind to yourself. It's tough. Times have been really difficult over the last few years, but the fact that this person is saying they feel better now that they're getting out again with friends, and how difficult it was, but that they're doing it, and well done, because I know it's difficult.
That's brilliant. And actually, one of the great things about connecting with people, isn't it, is if you can tell them your achievements. So if you can, if you say to somebody, I'm really struggling, I really want to maybe get out this week, but if you've then got somebody that you can come back to and say, oh, I did it, I managed to do it, that's kind of part of the kind of boosting your confidence in yourself.
Sometimes we're not very good at that. We're very good at telling
we don't celebrate it.
Wrong.
Yeah.
But, I think often we're very good at saying, oh, I did this badly, or I'm rubbish at this, or I'm failing at that. But actually to acknowledge, this is really tough, but I had a go and I tried, and it's hard, but if you can, it's a nice thing to do.
Yeah, brilliant. I think we'll round up there. Amazingly, that half an hour has flown by. But we do encourage you to look at some of our other sessions that we do. We do online sessions throughout the week. We've got a few coming up that might be interesting. We're doing our session, which is about looking after yourself as a carer. That's on the 1st of February. And on the 27th of January, we've been specifically looking at carers' rights and benefits. So making sure that you know what you're able to access and accessing it. But we have lots of other things available as well. We do have a support line which is available, and text line, which is 24 hours a day. So if you have any concerns, do get in touch with us, and we will do our best to offer you support and advice and guidance where we can. So definitely connect with us. But thank you so much, Jemima, for chatting to us today. That seemed to have flown by.
Good, yeah, thank you.
Any last thoughts before we finish?
Just to, if you can, I know it's tough, hold on to some hope.
Spring is coming.
Another day. Yeah.
Look out for those little daffodils coming up. They'll be here soon.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you very much, Jemima. And take care, everybody. We'll hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.